You are running with the Devils, and we are back after taking off a bye week, just like the team, and taking off for some time to get ourselves right. We're back at it here on Running with the Devils. I'm, as always, the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me, Big John Caldwell, and Big John. It's never easy to talk about a loss, especially to a division rival, as the Devils fall in Salt Lake City 2 weeks ago to the Utah Utes, 35-24. And man, hey John, such a I'd say arguably the worst second half in the Herm Edwards era. Just an awful game, level of play from on both sides of the ball. The Devils go into halftime up 21-7, and they give up 28 unanswered points in the second half, end up losing 35-24. 30, yeah, and just very 35-21. I beg your pardon.
Right,
and just very, very disappointing.
Shut us out. Well, we had we talked about this in our show. We could outstat them, we had out athleted them, but what you don't see in those stats is the heart of the other team, and they just came out firing hard.
Yeah.
We looked complacent, and that's a big lesson to be learned. The fact that after Utah, it looked like we progressed, we grew, we cleaned up mistakes and penalties. Here, it's not. While penalties were still an issue to some degree, it's your mental attitude. It's your complacency, and you lost your mojo now. You're going to have to work really hard to get it back.
Yeah, and we thought that we kind of worked past that, especially after the BYU game. I don't know what it is. The Devils just don't like playing in the state of Utah. And the penalties were an issue. I think, what was it? As we move on here to the to just our first segment here. The Utah game. 13 penalties, 115 yards in the game. Certainly, never like to see that. That was a problem, but I don't know if it was the problem. I think it was just the heart and desire of the team, for whatever reason, just took a dive after the second half. And going into the second half, you could tell that you can tell from the eye test. I mean, it was just Utah just coming out, firing off the ball much quicker. It was a problem. It really was.
And technically, Utah changed their blocking scheme. Instead of everybody lining up front and coming forward in a power scheme, the second half they were running off to a diagonal, more of a counter block scheme, and it was taking out linebackers. And really, what it did is it neutralized any kind of push we had up front. From our tackle, we usually get pretty good push from our tackles.
Yeah, it was an issue. And as we do anytime we have a defeat, we talk about a defeat here on Running with the Devils, we talk about the things we learned on Running with the Devils. We'll get into that here in a second. Sorry. The struggles to stop the tight end continue. They struggled against UCLA, struggled against
Stanford.
Stanford, yes. And once again, we talked about the Utah tight ends. There were 3 of them, and they combined for 11 catches, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Utes' rushing attack, which was another issue we talked about, combined 208 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Utah offense was 7 of 11 on third down. The player of the game probably for the Utes was quarterback Cam Rising.
We made his highlight film, man.
Yeah, we did.
We did. And the fact is, it seemed to me that they did a really good job of studying our film, in particular that tight end getting in the seam between the corners and the safeties, and exploited it. I think they saw in both of those games where we had trouble in that seam, so they went right after it. They also went after the fact that Lucas and Fields were out, and they kind of picked on those younger players, those younger guys. So
to a certain extent, that was the case. I mean, and his the rushing, Rising getting out and running the ball too. I mean, we talked about his ability. He's a dual threat guy. I mean, we knew he could do that. 6 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown. And he was a big reason for those third down conversions. He was usually the one picking those up with his legs a lot of times. So just a real issue. But Some good did come from the bye week for ASU. Utah, their first Pac-12 defeat this past Saturday. They lost to Oregon State in Corvallis. There's a lot of tiebreakers in effect. I mean, UCLA is still in the mix. They play Utah this weekend, but we do, because Utah technically owns a tiebreaker over ASU. Utah needs to lose one more, and ASU needs to win out, or Utah needs to lose two more, and ASU can only lose one more, and so on and so forth. Basically, we cannot have more defeats than Utah. We have to have a better record than Utah the rest of the way.
We do,
in order for us to make, presumably to win the South and make it to the Pac-12 championship.
If all three teams wind up with the same,
yeah, you were talking about this. There's like a fifth tiebreaker that
the fifth tiebreaker
ASU could potentially hold,
and that is the rankings. And quite frankly, we probably will have a higher ranking if we continue to win out than anybody else because of strength of schedule. But we shall see. This is why you got to play. Why you play the games.
Yeah, that's that Utah UCLA game this coming Saturday. Definitely got to watch that game. That game kicks off at 8 p.m. So definitely tune in for that, and root on. I would say root on UCLA, but both those teams are still in the mix for the South. It's not just ASU and Utah. UCLA still has a shot at it as well.
Yeah, and then you got to hope that SC will knock off UCLA at the end.
Yeah. And as we always do here every week on Run with the Devils, we got a Herm quote here. You can certainly pause if you want to read this. It's just something from his weekly press conference. And they don't. He broke it down really well. I mean, they don't have control of their own destiny right now. They have to come back. They have to bounce back from this. They have to show some resilience. Luckily, they had the bye week to kind of digest this one and move on from it. Look at the film once, and try to correct some of these shortcomings, and hopefully not let them happen again going forward.
Well, the only positive thing that I could see of this whole game is that we had younger players who got a lot of reps, that will pay off down the stretch. But the twos on defense continue to be stout, but if you're stuffing our tackles, you're taking away a big part of our defensive scheme, and that's clearly what they did. They just manhandled our tackles, I know these guys study. They study the film and they see what's coming up with Wazoo. So the whole tone of how you handle loss, like they handled the BYU loss, is everything. And Herm just told them, play free, run hard, play free. Don't be worried about making your mistakes. And then our coaches did a really good job, I thought, coming out of BYU, and I thought the team got much better overall in terms of execution and focus. Let's see if they can do that again.
Yeah, just because they lose this game, you and I both said, the season's not over by any stretch.
No,
you and I both said 10-2 was the record to shoot
was the
for.
mark. Yeah,
right. We felt like we could win the South going 10-2, especially if we only lost one conference game. So this is but now I think it's time to start playing to form, playing at your highest level, and sometimes through the course of a season, a loss can have as much effect as a win. It kind of wake you up. It kind of say, hey, you're not hot stuff just yet. You still got work to do, and this is I think that's the kind of the attitude that this has. That's the effect that this can have on this team.
Yeah, the heart and soul of this team.
See that happen.
We've talked about this over and over. The heart and soul of this team are our linebacking core and our secondary. That's where I really expect the leadership to take over now, and to see some some accountability really start to take place on this team, and just everybody do their job, a la Bill Belichick. Just do your job. Do your job. No freelancing. Do what you've been told to do. You're instructed, and you will And like Jack Jones has said, they know ASU has really good athletes. They know it. They can feel it. It's just they know they're not living up to that expectation or that their capability. There's nothing worse in sports than playing down to your level of competition.
Yes.
Yeah, as Antonio Pierce said, being good is
Yeah.
is the worst thing you can do to a
Yeah,
great
and
athlete.
ASU's been guilty of that too. They have
Yes.
played down to their opponents at times. I mean, there's been, there's also been stretches where they've been able to turn it on
Right.
and outplay their opponent enough to get the win. But at the same time, you still want to see them come out and play well for a full 4 quarters.
AP has a really good expression. He says, "Good is the enemy of great."
I remember him saying that this
Yeah.
week. Yeah, it's
And
so
you
true.
have
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and I think that's getting through.
Yeah,
The
and they have to go. They have to move up from that level. They have to move up from being good to being great.
That's right.
I think that at this point in the season, that's what we need to see if they're serious about winning this division and playing for a conference championship.
It's 5 games. And it's one at a time.
That's the
And
season. This is the season right here. These next 5 games is the season.
Mhm.
If I'm, I think the bye week is kind of coming at a good time because if I'm the coaches, I'm saying, hey, our season starts this Saturday.
Right.
We're at home. Let's go out there and play like the champions we want to be.
Yep.
I think that's got to be the message.
0-0. Yep.
Yes.
And
Totally.
I don't.
Just to kind of put a bow on Utah, just we'd like to see them play a little bit better. Utah was playing with a little bit of fire, a little bit of passion, and with their fallen teammates being honored during this game. That might have had an effect on them. Certainly raised their game to another level. But now it's ASU's turn. ASU's got to raise their game going forward here. They got to match that intensity of their opponents. You can't let them blow you off the ball and continue to make play after play after play, because it doesn't matter if you're up 14 points or 30. A team can come back on you if you don't have that, if you don't have your own intensity out there. And it was brutal to watch that second half at times. It really was.
Yeah, I really do feel that, because the defense was such a marked change in terms of the performance of defense from all. I mean, we're a very good defense. We're good on the defensive scoring. We're good against the rush. We have very senior linebackers, great back end. When the offense sees that happening, I think it affected the offense too. I really do. I think
there is a trickle down effect. I mean, when
there has to be.
When one side of the ball makes a play, the other side sees that and says, "Hey, we gotta go out there and match that. We're not going to let them show us up. We're going to go out there and make our own play now."
A good example is field position. That they inherit from that. I mean, there's many things that happen as a result of the defense getting beat. If you do get 3 and you're putting the offense out more often, or you're getting lousy field position. But yeah, I mean, we've got. That's the funny thing about this team. When the defense is, and you've made your point here, I think that is, you got to keep running the ball in order to pass the ball. We run to set up the pass.
Well, that's our identity offensively. We are a run team, a run first team. If we're not running, and that's kind of. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that feeds into my point here on things we learned, what we learned. We do this on Running with the Devils after a defeat, presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. To support local athletics, check out valleyathleticcboosterclub.com. And that's my point on what we learned this week. Sun Devils aren't running the ball. The offense just doesn't have that, it doesn't have that firepower, I think, isn't there. We've seen the running, we've seen the passing game, come alive at times.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not running the ball, if they're not drawing up the defense, if the play action isn't there, it's just not working. It's not. They just don't have the receivers that are not on the same page with Jaden Daniels at this point. It's they are a run first team. That is their identity. And if they are not having success running the ball, that offense isn't going anywhere. And that was evident in the second half when they tried to run the ball, but when you mentioned the tackles made some adjustments. They were very stout. they were, ASU was trying to run to the outside. It just wasn't there.
No.
And when you got a probably, a top, a relatively high draft pick at linebacker and Devin Lloyd running around making plays constantly.
Oh yeah.
It's very, very tough. I mean, they were able to do some good things on the ground the first half. The second half just was a whole nother story. And, that was a big key to why, Utah was able to shut out the Devils in the second half, was the running game. And, the bye week, I mentioned this too, bye week coming at a good time. They are going to get a couple guys back off of injury. Johnny Wilson, Chase Lucas, both should play against Wazoo. Evan Fields is 50-50 right now.
Game time decision.
But the fact that this team's going to get a chance to mentally reset, kind of take a breath, have some time off to not just heal physically, but also mentally, I think is very important. So hopefully they'll come back, ready to play this Saturday against Wazoo.
Yeah, I mean, getting guys like Matus has been dinged up. He didn't play against Stanford, but he played sparingly in this game, this last game. So, yeah, he's a starter. We need a big starting effort out of him. Even though we're getting decent production out of the twos, he's a starter. And the D line's got to be able to, see things on film and practice the change in blocking schemes.
Most of Utah's success on the ground offensively came in the second half as well. So they got to be able to adjust. Absolutely.
Yeah. They were influence blocking. Basically, everybody was influencing a certain direction. They're running counter to it, or they're running and taking out, getting to the second level and getting taken care. Our linebackers were having a fit all second half, especially at the edge. Getting off. So I expect that to change. It's a different set of talent. It's about matchups too. This is the thing. And we'll talk about Wazoo now.
Getting into Wazoo here, this is probably the best story in the Pac-12 thus far this year, just from everything that's happened off the field with them. They're 4-4 on the season. Head coach Nick Rolovich was fired 7 games into the season for refusing to get the vaccine. 4 assistant coaches went out the door with him when he was let go. This Saturday will be their second game under interim head coach, who's also the defensive coordinator, Jake Dickert. They had kind of a top heavy schedule with 6 of their first 8 games being at home. Saturday will start the stretch of 3 of their final 4 on the road. So,
right.
Definitely it's been an interesting season for the Cougs. They're kind of going through a bit of a transition this year with Rolovich starting to institute his system, something similar to what he ran at Hawaii.
Run and shoot,
yeah. But now they were kind of going from the air raid to the run and shoot, and now they don't really know what direction they're headed. With an interim head coach. They did play well at times against BYU last week, but still, very uncertain future in Pullman for this team.
I really feel sorry for the kids. That's my take. I feel terrible for the kids when something happens like this in the mid-season, especially when they were getting some momentum starting to build. It was their system, the stuff they had implemented that was starting to work, and you could see it. And it's all they really have is each other right now, and I'm sure their world was rocked, but there's nothing they can do but go out and play for themselves, play for each other.
They lost 3 of their first 4. They were including their opener against Utah State. But they won 3 in a row before Rolovich was let go during the bye week. So it looked like they were starting to get things going, including an impressive win over Oregon State. So they were starting to get things going, and now don't really know what to expect from them.
Well, I had told you, because they had won those 3 games in a row, right. and going into BYU, I told you, I said, if they beat BYU, we better watch out. They have a big, the mojo's really going. So things have changed after that, and they're on the road, and it's I'm sure the emotions and all that are still pretty high, but the level of coaching, the level of their preparedness, the level of their film study, the level of their is probably just, when you have 2 and 3 star guys, you have to really rely on being coached up. And when the coach, all your top coaches and assistants are gone, it's got to change. It's got to change the landscape.
Yeah, especially on the offensive side. They had I think there was their co-defensive coordinator who quit. Their recruiting coordinator, who was also the assistant head coach, was let go. Yeah, the quarterback's coach, who was also the co-offensive coordinator.
Right.
Yeah, and their defensive tackles coach and their offensive line coach were also let go. So
they literally have GAs who have stepped up to become position coaches now. That's
basically like going from middle management to being on the board.
Interns to welcome to the board.
You're skipping the analyst and going right to position coach.
Exactly.
They don't usually do that too often.
No. So good for those guys. They get the experience. They get that on a resume.
It's a good opportunity for them. But yeah, you're right about the kids though. You come in expecting to play for certain group of guys, and then they're ceremoniously let go just like that out the door.
Right.
And it's tough. It really is.
And it's tough because
I can't imagine having to go through a situation like that, let alone playing a little less than half your season.
Well, it's sad because they didn't break any NC2A rules. There were no NC2A rules about this vaccine. Everything is
just state law. It was just a state law thing.
It's not even a law. It was a mandate.
Let's
be clear. This mandates are not law. There's a big distinction.
Yeah.
And quite understandably, Rolovich is lowering up.
Oh
and
they talked about this on the broadcast in the BYU game. That he was going to be bringing a lawsuit against the school, and rightfully so. He was let go really without. It was a mandate, and there was. I guess they in at least strictly in legal leagues they had cause to let him go, but still it wasn't. It was you could say it was fair, but maybe not square in the way he let go.
All they really had to do was check with him and say, let's just see if you have antibodies. Maybe that would be enough. Or let's go get you some antibodies. But the position the administration took was rather harsh.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And after all, that's what we are. We're analysts, and we're calling it like we see it. My real feeling though is
they kind of dropped the hammer. I don't think when they necessarily needed to. They were. There was some pushback by Rolovich as far as like them, asking him to get the vaccine. He didn't really feel like it was necessary. He chose not to, and they let him go for it.
Well, he filed for
a little bit of an overreaction.
Yeah. Well, he filed for there was an exemption route in their policy, in their mandate. He filed for the religious exemption, and they didn't give it to him. So, what more does he have to do? If that out was available, and they didn't honor the religious exemption.
Yeah.
Anyway,
tough situation all the way around. But there's still a game to play. They still got to go out there and try to play their best. And you're talking about Washington State as a team. You always talk about their offense, their ability to move the ball up and down the field, the ability to score. And this is a Washington State team that can get out and put some points on the board a little bit.
Yep.
They're especially they were having a couple good weeks there. Where they put 31 up on Oregon State, 34 against Stanford. They had gone through a tough stretch early in the season, but they looked like they were starting to put it together. They struggled a little bit against BYU last week. Kind of a tougher defensive team. But this is still a team that can put some points on the board, and it starts with their quarterback. They have their own Jaden DeLora. He was having himself a nice year. 64% completion, 1,739 yards. His 15 touchdowns are the most in the Pac-12 so far this season.
Yep.
Against just 6 interceptions. He didn't have a great game against BYU. Really struggled to find the receivers consistently. and he kind of threw into some coverage and should have had probably a couple more interceptions. He did have one
Right.
against the Cougars.
He could have easily have had two. Yes.
Yeah, and but he's a good he's a good athlete, kind of a dual threat. He's having himself a nice year. This is, he was suspended earlier in the season. I think he didn't play the first half against Utah State there, which was their opener that they lost. But he's put together a nice year for himself, and really had himself a good year. Especially, you don't often see Washington State quarterbacks get out and run too much, but he ran 27 times for 69 yards and has a rushing touchdown on the year. So he can get out and run when he needs to. He's a good athlete.
It's a quarterback-driven league, no doubt about it. And the fact that he's a sophomore and having kind of coming into his own, they should be building on that, and they should feel good about him as their leader. I've been there's been flashes. I've been watching him, but the fact that he throws touchdown strikes down in the red zone is very impressive. But he's a sophomore, and we need to go out there and treat him.
And
like a sophomore, like he does. He's not all that yet.
Yeah.
He ain't. He ain't. What's his name? The mustachio boy from
Garner Minshew.
Minshew, yeah. And he was really a one year phenomenon, right?
Yeah, and they've always had system guys. Of course, this was under Mike Leach when they were running the air raid. Now they switched over to the run and shoot, which was Rolovich's offense when he was at Hawaii. But now they've and that's kind of what they've run. And this is and a big part of this offense is their running back Max Borghi. He was a big part of their offense under Mike Leach, and he's continued to produce in this offense as well.
He's not a burner. That's for sure.
They'll run the ball a little bit more in this offense. It's still kind of a pass first scheme, but Borghi's had himself a nice year, averaging over 5 yards a carry, eight touchdowns on the ground so far. He's also got 10 receptions for 90 yards. And this kid, we were talking about it before the show.
He's been around forever.
He has been around for a while. He's a senior now, and he's tough to bring down. He's a bigger back, 5'10" to about 205. Runs low to the ground. Very rarely do you see the first guy bring him down. And he's a tough one to tackle.
He's got great balance.
Yeah, he kind of. We were talking about this before the show too. He's kind of kind of reminds me of a bigger Demario Richard. He doesn't really have blazing speed, but he's a good threat. He's a good receiving threat out of the backfield. Very rarely does the first guy bring him down. He's tough. He can take hits and make plays after that initial contact. And he's the way they're using him makes him a very effective weapon.
He always falls. You can tell he's very senior. He falls forward. Mm-hmm. He never stops his leg drive going. And he has to do that because he doesn't have that great top end pull away speed like a lot of running backs in this league have. But no, he's a plugger, and he gets the job done. He's been very, very tough for them.
Yeah, and you're talking about Washington State. Of course, you always got to talk about their passing game, and the receivers this year for Wazoo been very good. Calvin Jackson Jr. and Travell Harris are their two big weapons. Jackson 41 receptions, 528 yards, 4 touchdowns on the year. Harris 51 receptions, 525 yards, 5 touchdowns on the year. Both these guys, you mentioned them, line up in the slot, which is a little bit unusual for bigger receivers in the league. But that makes for matchup issues with these with the secondaries. They don't have a tight end, but they have these big receivers in the slot that they can run up the seam, and they create matchup issues.
Well, just to give you an idea, these two guys, Jackson Jr. and Harris, are within the 5 top best wide receivers in the league. They are 2 of them. They have 2 of the top 5 in this league.
Statistically, yes.
Yes. So from a
big
production
part of that is how much Washington State throws the ball. Certainly, their stats get a little bit padded because they've been throwing it so much, but still, you still have to go out there and produce. Still have to fit into the system. Still have to understand what the opposing defense is. these two kids have a ton of talent. They've matched really well with Delora so far. They're having a nice year, not by accident.
Yeah. So these are the kind of kids, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but you've got to jam these kids on the line. You got to take them off their routes in the slot. That is a so these are the three guys you really got to
Oh yeah,
pick your
they're
poison.
big parts of this offense. You absolutely have to get bodies on them, not let them get away. Know where they are at all times. And then you got a third receiver there, John Stripling, the freshman who's having himself a nice year, 27 receptions, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Right.
He had kind of a slow start against BYU when I watched him, but he really came on there late when they made that late push and almost came back to pull with it to tie the game. I mean, Washington State only lost 21-19 against BYU, and we're going for 2 to try and potentially send it to overtime, and that they almost came back. So that was a very interesting game to watch. And all those receivers were definitely a big part of that. Borghi, of course, had himself a nice game. So this is still an offense that can move it up and down the field and put points on the board.
Interesting. I think Delora came out of Hawaii from that real big program that just wins everything in Hawaii every year.
Did Mariota came from?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
I know the one you're talking about. I think it's like St. Louis or something.
Yeah, it's not, you're close, but that's the team that wins everything over there. Johnson, I believe, is out of Florida. He's a Fort Lauderdale kid. So they've got an interesting crew of guys that come from all over the country to come in and play under this system.
One big thing about Washington State this year, they're doing something that Cougar teams of the past have really struggled to do. That's play defense.
Yeah.
They're actually a halfway decent defensive team, and they're struggling against the run a little bit. They're giving up 166 yards a game. They give up 238 against BYU, who of course is a very run-heavy team. But the big surprise has been their passing defense, which has only given up a little over 212 yards per game, which is good enough for 43rd in the nation. And that's a big surprise from this team. That's statistically historically always just tried to outgun everybody,
right?
There was outscore everybody, and
nowhere to go but up.
A little bit of defense this year.
Yeah, there was nowhere to go but up after.
After that too. They've struggled so much on defensively that exactly, nowhere to go but up. But actually, they're playing really, really well, and they run a 4-3 base, so the linebackers get plenty of opportunities to make plays, and they'll stagger them, left and right. They'll oftentimes put 5 or 6 players on the line of scrimmage. They'll, rarely do you see this team not have 7 or 8 guys in the box to try to take things away. And their linebackers are really, really good. They're just tackling machines. And Jadad Woods, with his 61 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, a pass deflection, he's having a nice year. The other linebacker, Justice Rogers, 47 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, interception. And he's really filling up the stat sheet with what he does. So this is actually a defense that's played really, really well. I mean, they held USC to 14 points. They held Cal to 6 points. I think BYU's the 21 points they had was their second lowest scoring output of the game. And even though they lost, I think you still have to, when you're looking at Wazoo's defense doing that, you got to give them some credit.
Well, it's a base defense. They don't do a lot of trickeration.
Yeah, they don't do too much exotic stuff.
Exactly, and I think that's something that I picked up on it, that it's pretty much a base. They're not walking anybody up. They're not changing their scheme on the back end. It's not
a lot of pre-snap movement.
Exactly,
that's true. I mean, they'll line guys up in the box and whatnot. And but the real star of this season has been their secondary, which has been such a pleasant surprise. And as we move on here on the defense, their safety George Hicks is having a nice year. He's a guy that they'll bring in the box. He's got 42 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, interception on the year, and then their corners have been playing very, very well. Armani Marsh and Derek Langford, they've each got an interception on the season. This team as a whole has got 7 interceptions. They got 7 different guys with 1 interception.
Yeah.
So that's really, really impressive, the fact that they do that. And then, on the defensive line, they got a couple guys in Ron Stone Jr. and Brennan Jackson. Jackson's a 2-time conference defensive lineman of the week. They both have interceptions, which you don't often see from a pass rusher and a defensive lineman.
Yeah, they drop guys. They drop them in coverage too.
They'll do some different things with these guys. 71 tackles, 13 tackles for loss. They combined for 7.5 sacks. They really played well. This defense is not your daddy's Wazoo defense. It just had more lanes than the I-10. They're actually playing very, very well this year. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. This could turn into a bit of a defensive battle.
Well, this is a kind of a game where 3 tight ends could really start to help. Really play a big difference in the beating an undermanned back end, or if these linebackers aren't able to drop back in coverage quickly, I'm sure we've looked at all that. Look at their hips, look at how they're backpedaling, see how well they cover. But we do have more weapons, and that's something we've had all year long. Every week is kind of a different guy stepping up. As you pointed out in the pre-show, Hodges is now our leading receiver. So the tight end thing is kind of working now.
Oh yeah.
And you're getting contribution of Conyers, although he dropped two in the Utah game, I believe.
But he still had, I think, his best game receiving that he had. He's been at ASU. He had the one receiving touchdown, but
we were targeting.
I think you're right. This is another game for the defense. Excuse me, for the tight ends. To go out there and play well, and with Hodges starting to really come into his own. Conyers starting to get more looks in the passing game. Maybe this is, that's another part of this offensive identity is you start looking to the tight ends first as opposed to the receivers. It's working for Utah, so why not?
Yeah.
So, just moving on here. Our keys to the game, as we do every week on Runnin the Devils, presented by XLLending.com. For all your mortgage needs, check out XLLending.com. And my keys, first and foremost, I think, we talked about their offensive identity. They're a ground garrison. They've got to run the ball, especially against a team like this that struggles to stop the run. I mentioned gave up 236 yards to BYU, and BYU's a running team. So are we. So is ASU. ASU is a running team. You mentioned the 3 tight ends. I think, you put them out there. First look from the defense is they're going to run the ball. So, got to go out there. That sets up the play action, especially if you can get, continue to move the chains on the ground, and you control. There's a lot of benefits to doing that. You control the clock. Don't let Wazoo get into a rhythm offensively, and they go out there and run the ball like we've seen them do in the past. There's no reason that they can't win this game. And then defensively, bottle up Borgie. He is that running back is such a huge part of Washington State's offense. He's tough to bring down. Rarely does the first guy take him down. So they've got to be very sound in their tackling when they go after him, and gang tackle the guy. Get after him.
Yeah.
Know where he is at all times. And just put somebody on him. I don't care if you maybe bring Fields into the box, just have him follow. Have Soley or Butler follow him. Just do something to get to slow him down, because he's having a tremendous year. Is such a big part of that offense. As this offense goes, a lot of times Borgie goes. So they gotta find a way to limit him.
Yeah, and so you have really 2 jobs. You got to stop Borgie, and you need to stop these big tall slots of theirs.
Yes.
Excuse me. So I'm sure that's what they've been practicing all week, and you've got to have guys who can, I expect these guys to be covered man to man, and not playing 10 yards off. not in the slot at
It's
least.
very tough to play zone against this team with as much. I mean, at least not from the corner. At least not by the corner. You want to play some
Yeah.
man zone. Have the corners play man and the safeties play zone. I'm good with that. This is probably going to be one of those games where ASU, like they did a couple years ago. They only play like 2 or 3 down linemen.
Hmm.
And that's what a lot of teams have been doing at Wazoo. That's why they've only given up 7 sacks on Delora this year, because teams just aren't rushing them. They're playing back and trying to take away those passing lanes.
Right.
And they've had mixed success. Obviously, it depends on the team that they're playing, but I think that's what ASU is going to end up doing. And you got to put bodies on those receivers. But when you are in, I guess you call it dime or your dollar defense the whole game, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. I have and this is my last point, is if you want to get your mojo back, you've got to play all 4 quarters. You cannot take plays off, and you've got to start making them pay. I mean,
Yes.
now is a little bit of pride has to start kicking in with these guys, saying, we did not execute in that last game against Utah. And you cannot let them beat you twice. You've got to get off and play hard every down. And
I think the coaches are going to challenge them to do that too. I think that's something the coaches have probably put a focus on here these past 2 weeks since they played last. Is putting the onus on the players to go out there and not take plays off. Don't get complacent.
Yeah.
And just go out there and play like you're capable. Play 100% all the time.
As we said it earlier in the show, AP nailed it, and I think the kids are, from what I can gather, reading Jack Jones's comments, that good is the enemy of being great, of the great ones. You just can't settle for being good.
Yeah,
you
that's
just can't settle.
I think that's a good mantra for the rest of the season. Go out there, don't be good, be great.
You're going to have to.
Great.
It means if you really want to be a championship team, you cannot take plays off. You cannot have a bet. You can't have a terrible quarter. You've got to play hard every down, the rest of the way. You got to show what you're made of.
Yeah. If you're serious about making a play for the conference championship, I think that's got to be the attitude. Definitely. Yeah. But actions speak louder than words. Hopefully, we'll see that on Saturday, as we do here every week. Our prediction time. It's prediction time. For me, I think it's going to be a little bit of a close game, but I think ASU is going to be able to put up some points on the board. Washington State started slow pretty much all season. I think ASU will jump out to a bit of a lead, and Wazoo might make a play there towards the end, but it's going to be too little, too late. Devils come out with a 34-27 victory.
I see us scoring at least a TD a quarter, and maybe slipping one more in there and at least a field goal. So that's how I got to 38. If we stay home and we take care of these slots and we shut down Borgia, especially getting around the edge, that's where he gets around the edge and he'll get you 4 or 5 more yards.
Yeah, you gotta set the edge and keep containing on the defensive line.
That's definitely right. Yes. So a big job for Matus and Tyler Johnson to set the edges real hard and stay home. So I have it 38-24.
And another thing, just to follow up on that, and on Borgie, he doesn't have blazing speed. So when he gets out to the edge, that's where the linebacker, if the defensive end can't keep contained, linebackers got to come over and make a play.
Yeah.
And that we've been lauded for our linebacker play. Hopefully they come out and have kind of a bounce back game, because they were disappeared at times against Utah. So
if you take our body of work on defensively, there's only 2 teams in the PAC who've allowed less than 20 points per game, us and Washington.
Yeah.
And you'd think Washington, they're doing it. So I think they have to kind of keep.
They kind of have to, because they can't score any points.
That's right.
But kind of closing the book here on this week's episode. It's a blackout this week. Got to go out there, blackout Sun Devil Stadium. It's an early game. Get out there early. Get to your tailgate. I know we're going to be up there early, so get some breakfast in you, and then get in the stadium. It's going to be actually a 12:20 kickoff. They just announced that they pushed it back 20 minutes, so it's going to be a good time out there. It shouldn't be. It's going to be perfect football weather. Should not be above 77. So there's no reason. It's not going to be too. It's not going to be too hot. So go out there, support the team, be loud, and let's conquer the Cougs. And don't forget, go Bruins Saturday night against the Cougs. So for Ryan Knowles and Big John Caldwell, we say good night. Go Devils. Forks up.
Forks up. Go get them.